Hi, everybody at the HERDS. My name is Paul, and I'm going to talk to you today about a wonderful little bird called the puffin. Now, I know that your HERDS puppets are going to be making their way, I believe, from Africa to the Arctic. Now, Scotland is kind of on the way. So this is our world. That's Scotland, and that is the Arctic. So we're not in the Arctic in Scotland, but we're pretty close. What you might call the subarctic. And in the subarctic country of Scotland, we have a lot of puffins. We've got about a tenth of the puffins in the whole world breed in Scotland. This incredible little bird is a creature really of the oceans. Most of their lives, they're not sitting on the ground like this. They're actually sitting on the water, on the surface of the sea. And they spend an awful lot of their time diving underneath the sea as well. And they're absolutely expert swimmers. They only come to land really for one purpose only, and that is to breed, to have their babies. And this is a baby puffin here. He's sometimes called a puffling. And this puffling has been taken very carefully out of his burrow because puffins nest in burrows in the earth. And they dig these burrows using their feet. You might think the puffin's beak, or its bill as it's sometimes called, looks like quite a big, potentially quite a sharp thing that would bite you. But if you actually are holding a puffin, it's not the beak you've got to watch, it's their feet, because their feet are very, very strong and they've got very, very sharp claws. But this is a baby. This is a puffling, and he's been taken out of his burrow just for a little while so we can put a metal ring on his leg so we'll know who he is and can identify him into the future. So here is Scotland from space. And you can see that there's a lot of sea all around Scotland. And you can see there's lots of islands, particularly off the west, the left-hand side, all those little dots, the green dots are islands, and up to the north, they're all islands as well. There are, in fact, hundreds and hundreds of islands in Scotland, and puffins and other seabirds love nesting on islands. And the other thing they love, of course, is eating seafood. And the green colours you can see around the blues of the ocean, that is plankton. These are microscopic little plants floating in the surface layers of the sea, and there are millions and millions of them. So many you can actually see them from outer space. And those little plants are very important. I'll be coming to that in a little moment. The puffins, most of all, they like to eat fish, and in particular, around Scotland, they like to eat a little fish called sand eel. And you can hear this is a puffin who has brought sand eels in for her puffling, and she's caught them out at sea. How does she manage to hold so many in her mouth at the same time? Well, in the top roof of her mouth, she has little spines that point backwards, and they kind of grip onto the fish, and she pushes the fish up with her tongue against the top of her bill. On the inside, those little spines hang on to the fish. That means she can hold 10, maybe 20 sand eels in her mouth all at the same time and bring them back to give her puffling a really, really good meal. Now, this is what these little tiny microscopic plants called phytoplankton look like under a microscope. And these are floating millions and millions and millions of them in the seas around Scotland and indeed around the world, particularly in the Arctic and in the Antarctic. And these little plants are food for little animals like this. This is what's called a copepod. Now, copepods graze on the phytoplankton. And the copepod is food for a sand eel. And this is a sand eel. This is what they do generally during the day. They spend a lot of the day buried in the sand at the bottom of the sea. So this is a sand eel buried in the sand at the bottom of the sea after he's had his dinner of copepods. And then they come out every so often during the day and they form huge shoals, big groups of fish like this. And this is sand eels swimming through the seas around Scotland. And this is the food of the puffin. So the puffin is like the top predator in the system of the sea. We've got the phytoplankton, the plants, and then the zooplankton, the copepods, and then the sand eels, and then the puffin. This is the food chain in the marine environment around Scotland. How do they catch these fish? Well, this is a puffin flying. You can see she's coming in with a big mouthful of sand eels ready to feed her puffling. And look at her wings. Compared to some other birds like crows maybe or gulls, her wings are really short and she has to flap them very fast to fly in air. The reason she has short wings is because she uses her wings to fly underwater. And actually flapping your wings underwater, if your wings are short, is the very best way that any bird can ever swim. And that means that this puffin can swim really fast and really deep, fast enough to catch sand eels. Now I know because I've been swimming with sand eels, and if you as a person try swimming up to them and try and catch them with your hand, there's absolutely no way you can grab them. You have to be very, very quick indeed to catch a sand eel. And this puffin obviously knows exactly what she is doing. And where do the islands come in? This is a puffin coming into land on her island home. Well, islands are really important for seabirds because the seabirds breed in their little burrows that they dig for the pufflings. Then they go out to fish and spend a lot of their day fishing away from the island. If there are predators around like cats or rats or stoats, then the puffling might actually be caught by another predator. The thing about islands is that they're quite naturally, there aren't any of these predators around. So that makes them a safe place for the puffin to bring up her young. And so if you have a place where there's a very rich sea with lots of phytoplankton, therefore lots of sand eels, and if you've got lots of islands like these as safe places to breed, then you will have given seabirds all of the things that they need, and they will come and they will live and they will thrive, and there will be many, many thousands of them. And luckily, we have thousands of seabirds in Scotland because Scotland has lots of islands and we've got very rich seas. Now, let's think again about this marine environment. When you get up to the Arctic and the subarctic regions, there are very strong seasons. So we have long summers where there's lots of sunlight and the days are very, very long and the nights are very, very short and it's quite warm. And then we have winters where the days are short and it's dark and it's stormy. One of the things that we can say now about the seas around Scotland and about our seabirds like puffins and about our plankton and about our sand eels is that climate change is really beginning to affect that marine food chain. What's happening is that the phytoplankton, the plants, are beginning to get out of synchrony with the zooplankton. And that means there's less food for the sand eel, and that means less food for the puffin. And I'm afraid to say that the puffin numbers are in decline. They are really falling, and they're falling quite seriously. And I work for an organisation called the RSPB, which is a nature conservation organisation, and we're getting really worried about seabirds and about puffins in particular. So we have the phytoplankton, we have the copepod, we have the puffin, and we know that this food chain is being disrupted by climate change. But we also know that the sand eels are being caught by people as well. So there's a huge fishery, 1 million tons or more every year, taken out of the North Sea near Scotland, near where I am now. And that is making the problem worse for puffins, because we know that this human fishing is competing with our seabirds for food. What can we do about it? Well, the good news is we can do quite a lot about it. So the RSPB and other nature conservationists have argued to our governments that really, for the sake of the puffin and for all of our seabirds and for the marine food chain, we really need to stop catching sand eels if we possibly can. And you know what? The government has actually listened. And right now, we're getting close to a ban on sand eel fishing in UK waters and the waters around Scotland. Now, we're not there yet. Some other countries are arguing with us about whether this is a good idea or not, but we're nearly there. And so we're really hopeful that this will be a conservation success story. So there are things that we can do for puffins. We can protect their island homes. When rats and cats and stoats are introduced accidentally by people or even deliberately onto these islands, it's a big problem for puffins and a big problem for the babies, the pufflings. So when they are introduced, we can make sure that they are removed, and we can also, most importantly, stop mammal predators from arriving on islands at all. The RSPB and other conservationists are very busy trying to do exactly that right now in Scotland and indeed in other parts of the Arctic and the subarctic and around the world. So there are people who've worked on puffins to find out more about them, to do the science, to investigate their lives and help to save them. And one thing that I wanted to say about the puffin is that it does seem to attract the most extraordinary people. Now, these are 3 people who I've worked with in my career. On the left there, that's Professor Sarah Wanless. In the middle, that's Professor Mike Harris, very sadly no longer with us. And on the right, that is Dr. Ewan Dunn, who was the head of marine policy in RSPB for many, many years. And each of these people is an absolute expert on the puffin. But the really weird thing is they also happen to be some of those wonderful, delightful, lovely, funny and kind people that I've ever met in my entire life. So it does seem that this beautiful little bird has a sort of magic about it. It seems to attract some very extraordinary people. And one of the things that's really magical about puffins is that they are incredibly curious. Now, I've told you puffins eat fish. What is this bird doing with some leaves in its bill? The truth is, puffins are just really curious. They really like to investigate things. And once, when I was sitting on top of a cliff studying puffins in the Shetland Islands way off to the north of Scotland, I was watching the birds through my binoculars and eating a sandwich as I sat on the cliff. And I put my half-finished sandwich down beside me, took up my binoculars. A little puffin, just like this one, came walking right up to me, and it picked up my sandwich in its beak, and I'm looking at the puffin saying, "You don't eat sandwiches." And the puffin dragged my sandwich away to the edge of the cliff, and I swear, the puffin just threw my sandwich off the cliff, and it looked at me, just being kind of cheeky. So, very curious. I've never quite had anything like that happen to me before or since. But really, the most beautifully, wonderfully charming animal I think one could ever possibly hope to meet. And what is the most important thing for the future of the puffin? Well, I could talk a lot about climate change. I could talk a lot about fishing. I could talk a lot about predators on islands. But actually, the most important thing for the future of the puffin is you. Young people who care about nature and care enough to try and do something about it is the most important thing for the future of the puffin and the future of our planet. And I wish you all the very best, and thank you very much for listening. Bye.